Yesterday, President Trump unveiled details of his long-awaited Middle East peace plan. We want to dive into that. Intended to diffuse decades of hostilities between Israelis and Palestinians, the initiative called for a two-state solution, an independent Palestine sitting alongside Israel, sharing a capital of East Jerusalem. President Trump called his own proposal a win-win for both sides. Take a listen.
My vision presents a win-win opportunity for both sides. A realistic two-state solution that resolves the risk of Palestinian statehood to Israel's security. Today, Israel has taken a giant step toward peace. Yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu informed me that he is willing to endorse the vision as the basis for direct negotiations, and I will say the general also endorsed and very strongly with the Palestinians, a historic breakthrough.
Joining us now is Middle East analyst Matthew RJ Brodsky. Matthew, clearly President Trump is very passionate about this. So what does this really mean for America and American interest?
Well, for the United States, Israel has been a long-time ally of the U.S. It's been a bulwark against the forces of Islamism, other bad forces in the Middle East, frankly. So the fact is, this is supposed to make the region safer. It's supposed to safeguard Israel's future as a Jewish state, but it's also supposed to provide for Palestinian statehood if they seize the opportunity to do the things that are necessary, that are laid out in the agreement, that would get them statehood. This would remove one of the issues in the Middle East, and it's also very important that this president, unlike those that came before him, understands that this issue is not linked to all the other issues in the region. It's not linked to Iran or other problems in Syria where there's a civil war, for instance. But this is one issue that we can deal with, and it's time to deal with, and hopefully the Palestinians will seize the initiative.
Matthew, you could clearly see when the president spoke earlier, the clip we showed, very optimistic. Is that the take inside of the White House? Is there a whole lot of optimism for this plan, seeing it all the way through, or simply just getting it started? What's the feeling inside of the White House on that?
Well, okay, first of all, this is the most detailed and realistic formula that has been put forward by a U.S. administration to solve the conflict. That said, this administration and those that I've worked with in the peace team are incredibly realistic and intelligent. So the fact is, everyone knows you don't make money betting on peace in the Middle East. It's just a bad bet. But that doesn't mean that you don't try, you don't reach for new initiatives, and that you don't do something that is, in fact, new, because this is a different approach that's really supposed to help the Palestinian people from the bottom up, which is different than focusing continuously on the Palestinian Authority leadership, which is pretty much pledged to the status quo and is proven to be a much bigger hindrance to progress rather than an agent for change.
Now, Matthew, you're in D.C. right now, but this plan would obviously be implemented across overseas in the Middle East. What's next for Benjamin Netanyahu and how effective this might actually be?
Depends on how you define effective for Netanyahu. On one hand, he's still facing now his third election, the third Israeli election in 1 year after stalemates. This week has proven to be very good for Netanyahu. First, he has this peace deal, which is an opportunity of the century, but he also is going on Thursday to pick up a Israeli-American prisoner in Russia. He's going to Moscow. This is someone who was arrested for having 9 grams of marijuana and was sentenced to some 7.5 years. He is able to then bring this 26-year-old female back and claim that as a victory as well. So he will, of course, use this for his own political purposes when it comes to the elections and to once again show that he is the one who has the great relationship with President Trump and has steered the country very ably through incredibly difficult times, given what's happening with Iran, what's happening with Syria and Iraq. So he will have his challenges cut out for him. But this is something that has been unambiguously fantastic for him.
A lot of people looking at this as a victory. The White House administration, Trump's administration, supporters as well, even on the other side of the aisle, saying that this is a victory as far as writing out this peace plan and unveiling it. But there's a whole other side to this, right? Palestinians, we showed rioting in the streets, burning Israeli flags, burning United States flag as well. There is a harsh reaction here, a lot of anger in Palestine area there for Palestinians. Did we expect that?
Yeah, look, the Palestinian Authority has made an art form of shooting themselves in the foot. This goes back decades, and before that, the PLO did the same. They've not only boycotted and had nothing to do and wanted nothing to do with the political aspect of the peace plan, which was released just yesterday. But if you recall, last June there was an economic workshop held in Bahrain, and that was put on by the United States. And the whole purpose was to raise economic prosperity for the Palestinian people. It was designed to improve the lives of Palestinian people. The Palestinian Authority at that point not only boycotted it, but they told other Arab leaders that they didn't want them to attend, and even threatened individual Palestinians who wanted to make a better life for themselves and at least go and give an open hearing to the ideas put forward. So they, frankly, the leadership is pledged to the status quo in a very detrimental way. And this is the kind of boycotts, I guess, that we've gotten used to. The problem is, they keep asking for things that they're never going to get. They're kind of steeped in a mythological tradition of explaining what is and isn't possible at a negotiation with Israel. So until they deal with reality, which is what this plan is, it's going to be hard for them to make progress because they've boxed themselves into their own corner.
You know, we're keeping an eye on this from the United States. There's, increased tension between Israel and Palestine. But what about the surrounding countries? How have they responded to this peace treaty?
Right. That's the interesting thing. They were going to wait primarily to see what the plan was going to be, first of all, and then to gauge what the reaction was. But in attendance yesterday, sitting in the row next to me, was the ambassador from Oman, the United Arab Emirates, and from Bahrain. There are also statements put out by Saudi Arabia and by Qatar, by all the other nations. None of them just rejected the deal. Almost all of them said there is a basis here for negotiations, and then they repeated various phrases that explained their role in previous negotiation attempts. So frankly, as far as what the administration could expect, I think the reaction around the region has actually been fairly positive, and it makes it more difficult for the Palestinian Authority leadership to just say that, well, everyone's rejected this idea.
Sure.
I mean, the deal calls for a state for Palestinians and a capital in East Jerusalem. This is it's a remarkable effort that they should embrace rather, than miss yet another opportunity to miss an opportunity.
That's right. All right, Matthew RJ Brodsky. He's the Middle East analyst and senior fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy. Thanks for joining us.